The cold, synthetic scent of forced air conditioning and Italian marble was the dominant aroma inside the headquarters of Sterling Transport. This wasn't just an office, it was a testament to the aggressive ambition of its owner. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooked the frantic, congested arteries of Interstate 85, a constant, low-frequency hum of traffic that served as David Sterling's personal background music. He stood against the sweeping vista, his silhouette sharp against the midday sun, a figure of uncompromising, hyper-modern success. David, or Dave as he preferred, was mid-sentence on a video conference, his voice a strained, sharp baritone that easily carried through the soundproofing. A half-second delay, Ken? Do you understand what that means? In this sector, half a second is the difference between a satisfied client and the competition owning our market share. I didn't build Sterling on half seconds. I built it on ruthless efficiency. Fix it, or I find someone who can. He ended the call with a curt motion of his hand, not a touch, and snapped his custom-tailored jacket back into place. His suit was dark, perfectly fitted, and screamed a four-figure price tag. His polished shoes clicked across the immaculate floor like punctuation marks. Just outside his personal corridor, nestled near the service entrance, was the reception area reserved for contracted logistics personnel, a cheaper, less comfortable space. Here, Art Bennett sat patiently. Art's clothing was a statement of function, not fashion. A worn-out denim jacket, neatly zipped but faded from years of washing, and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. His boots, scuffed and familiar with road grime, rested silently on the utilitarian, dark carpet. He had the patient stillness of a man who had seen many waiting rooms and knew the value of time. Art was waiting for a clerk to finalize paperwork on a disputed $50 fine. The issue was trivial: a 5-minute delay on a delivery to a non-critical depot. For Art, it wasn't about the money, it was, as he'd politely told the clerk, about ensuring the paperwork was accurate. A flurry of movement signaled Dave's exit from his private office. Trailing 2 steps behind him was Lena Chen, his executive assistant, holding a slim tablet and looking stressed. Lena was hyper-efficient, dressed impeccably, but her tired eyes betrayed the moral cost of working for a man driven solely by ego. "No, Janice, I understand he's a key client, but he needs to understand we only guarantee delivery windows, not delivery miracles," Lena whispered urgently into her headset, trying to smooth over the fallout from another one of Dave's dictatorial decisions. Dave stopped dead as he strode past the contractor waiting area. His attention, like a focused laser beam, landed on Art, who was speaking calmly to the young clerk. "I just need confirmation that this specific depot was listed as non-critical priority in the manifest. If it was, the 5 minutes shouldn't incur the Tier 1 late penalty," Art explained softly. Dave's face hardened. He was instantly enraged by the sight of this labor, questioning the system. He took 3 loud, deliberate steps across the threshold, his expensive shoes suddenly deafening in the quieter space. "What in the hell is going on here?" Dave's voice cracked like a whip. $50? You're wasting 5 minutes of my staff's time over $50? The young clerk instantly cowered. Art slowly turned his head, his face weathered, his expression utterly unreadable beneath the brim of his cap. Dave didn't wait for an answer. He took in the faded denim, the work boots, the quiet dignity, and his own internal history of struggle immediately curdled into toxic contempt. He saw a man who reminded him of the desperation he had clawed his way out of, and he felt compelled to stamp it out. "Look at him, Lena," Dave sneered, gesturing dramatically towards Art. "The face of essential logistics. The guy who thinks his 5 minutes of lost sleep is worth grinding my compliance systems to a halt." Lena looked mortified, her cheeks flushing, but she remained silent, a silent witness to the escalating injustice. "Let me tell you something, old man," Dave continued, stepping closer, his voice laced with aggressive mockery. "You're lucky to drive for us. You're lucky Sterling Transport provides a platform for your broken-down pickup. Pay the fine and be grateful, or get off my dock. Compliance is for labor. Accuracy is for CEOs. Now move." The humiliation hung heavy and sharp in the air. Art Bennett didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice or betray a shred of anger. The unsettling calm in his gaze didn't meet Dave's eyes with submission, but with a deep, unsettling clarity. A look that seemed to measure the man, not the moment. "I understand the fee, Mr. Sterling," Art replied, his voice a low, steady rumble that somehow felt more powerful than Dave's shout. "I simply wanted to ensure the paperwork was accurate. Now that the context is clear, I will sign." Dave laughed, a short, explosive, dismissive sound meant for the benefit of the entire lobby. "That's right. You sign. Now, get out of my building." Art took the pen, his hand steady and precise. He signed the form, the pen scratching the paper with finality. He stood up slowly, the squeak of his old boots suddenly echoing in the vast marble hall as he turned and walked toward the exit. He didn't rush. He moved with a deliberate, slow pace, leaving Dave Sterling standing alone, basking in the glow of his petty victory. Lena watched Art leave, then glanced back at Dave, a deep furrow of disappointment etched across her brow. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her, that her boss had just made a terrible, irreversible mistake. The scent of expensive leather and newly brewed espresso filled the air in Dave Sterling's private office. He was leaning back in his chair, a smug smile plastered across his face, scrolling through social media, seeing if any of his staff had dared post about the incident in the lobby. He was basking in the cheap thrill of his display of dominance. "I just put that old white trash in his place, Lena." "That's how you manage contractors," he gloated, not looking up as Lena Chen entered, placing a financial report quietly on his expansive desk. "They need to know their place. It's what I learned when they tried to keep me down. Power demands it." Lena shifted her weight, the movement of her expensive fabrics rustling the air. "Sir, with respect, Mr. Bennett is highly rated. He has been a contractor for nearly 5 years. That public humiliation, especially in front of prospective investors waiting in the South Lounge, it was excessive." Dave's head snapped up, his smile vanishing instantly. "Excessive? It was necessary. It was a lesson. You think I got this far by being nice, Lena? 20 years ago, the only thing that kept me warm in my 18-wheeler cab was the sheer, white-hot rage that men like him, the establishment, the gatekeepers, tried to block my loans, laughed at my pitch deck, and told me I was too much of a risk. This entire company, this view, this chair, was built on the premise that I will never, ever be weak enough to let someone disrespect my time again. 20 years ago, the air then was thick with the smell of stale coffee and diesel fumes, not polished leather. Young Dave, lean and burning with ambition, was parked illegally behind a diner, shivering despite the thick blanket. He pulled a sheaf of crumpled, oil-stained papers from a box, loan rejection letters, every single one of them citing insufficient collateral or market uncertainty. He'd sacrificed sleep, food, and every penny he had, only to be met by the condescending sneer of bankers who wouldn't look him in the eye. That grinding, systemic exclusion had forged his core belief. The world only understood strength, and kindness was a weakness exploited by those who controlled the money. His empire was not built on efficiency, it was built on anger. But that rage could not touch Art Bennett. Art, decades earlier, had worn a crisp lab coat, not a denim jacket, and worked in a sterile, silent industrial design center, the sound of ventilation his only company. He was a brilliant industrial engineer, responsible for patents that revolutionized modern supply chain logistics. He was the architect of the system Dave Sterling's company was now built upon. Art had sold his life's work for an 8-figure sum, not out of necessity, but out of disgust. He couldn't stand the cold, amoral rot of the corporate world, the endless meetings about maximizing profits at the expense of human dignity. He walked away, not broke, but liberated, choosing a simple life, a simple truck, and a simple wage. He wanted the dirt beneath his fingernails and the honesty of manual labor. Now, in the present, Art's reason for driving was far more complex than just earning a wage. He sat in the cab of his battered Ford pickup, the faint scent of rain and wet asphalt filling the small space. His hands, steady and strong, rested on the steering wheel. He pulled the baseball cap off and placed it on the passenger seat, revealing a clean, sharp mind focused on the data displayed on a small, encrypted tablet. He was working the job specifically to track and monitor the illegal use of his algorithm's successor, a system Sterling Transport had misappropriated. He wasn't collecting data for his employer, he was collecting evidence. He reached for his phone, his thumb dialing a contact labeled simply, Chloe, counsel. "It's done," Art said, his voice stripped of the polite deference he'd shown Dave moments earlier. It was now the firm, low voice of a man who held all the cards. "The systemic issues are confirmed. His behavior in front of his staff confirms his operational philosophy. We have the internal documents and the witness testimony from the assistant." A sharp, professional voice answered immediately. "Excellent, Dad. Dave Sterling just handed us the last piece of moral high ground we needed. Proceeding with the final acquisition stage. Time to teach Mr. Sterling what it means to truly respect labor." Art nodded, staring out at the reflection of the corporate glass tower in the wet pavement. "Good. Tell the board to prepare. His lease expires in 90 days. We are not renewing." The quiet tension of a man wronged had dissolved, replaced by the calm, formidable determination of a highly strategic planner ready to initiate the long game. The cold, righteous anger from the previous day had not dissipated. In Dave Sterling's mind, it had crystallized into strategy. He saw Art Bennett's quiet defiance not as resilience, but as a direct challenge to his authority, a sign of structural weakness he needed to ruthlessly eliminate. He wouldn't just fire the driver, he would make him a public example. Dave called the head of operations, a nervous man named Gary, who sounded immediately apprehensive. "I want Art Bennett's contract terminated immediately, Gary. And I don't want a quiet HR memo. I want a comprehensive email sent to every single contractor in the system by the end of the day, citing insubordination and failure to meet the professionalism standards of Sterling Transport. Make it clear this is a lesson for everyone." Gary stammered. "Mr. Sterling, Bennett has a 4.9-star rating, no record of disciplinary issues. He's one of our most reliable men on the long-haul routes. Are we sure this is the best PR move?" Dave's voice dropped to a menacing hiss. "PR is about projecting power, Gary. Right now, I need to project that I don't tolerate trash challenging me. Do it, or you'll be writing your own termination email next." Now, the operations manager hung up, a cold knot of dread in his stomach, and promptly drafted the email. It went out to hundreds of independent contractors, a blunt instrument designed to publicly isolate Art. It didn't mention Art by name, but the context, the recent noise in the lobby, was clear enough. The message was brutal: comply, or be cast out. Art received the email 20 minutes later. He was sitting in a roadside diner booth, the kind with cracked vinyl seats and the faint, comforting smell of burnt sugar and cheap coffee, after completing his final official route. He read the terse message on his tablet, noting the corporate jargon used to mask the simple truth. He was fired for irritating the CEO. A small, dry smile touched the corners of his mouth. It confirmed everything. Dave Sterling was exactly the type of man Art had walked away from decades ago: arrogant, power-drunk, and utterly predictable. "Well, Mr. Sterling," Art murmured, slowly placing the tablet beside his coffee cup. "The provocation is logged. Time for the reaction." He was not alone. From a window booth across the room, Lena Chen watched him. She had taken her lunch break precisely at this time, knowing Art's habits. She had been disgusted by Dave's actions, the casual cruelty, the wastefulness of firing a good worker over ego. She was a professional, but she had a line. Dave had just crossed it. Lena slid out of her booth and walked over, stopping by Art's table. She was still wearing her sharp business clothes, looking utterly out of place in the greasy diner. "Mr. Bennett? Art. I'm Lena Chen, Mr. Sterling's assistant," she said quickly, her voice low and nervous. "I know this is inappropriate, but I had to come. What he did yesterday, and today, with that email, it was wrong. I apologize for him." Art looked up, his expression softening slightly. He didn't seem surprised to see her. "You have no reason to apologize for him, Ms. Chen. You are not responsible for his choices. I was a witness," she insisted, her gaze earnest. She glanced around the diner, making sure no one was close enough to hear. I want you to know I saw the way he treated you. He's spiraling. The Gateway Hub lease renewal is causing chaos, and he's deflecting. She discreetly slid a folded envelope across the sticky tabletop, nudging it toward his coffee cup. It wasn't cash. It felt like paper. I can't stay, she whispered. This is highly confidential. Just look at it. Please. Before Art could respond, she was gone, clicking quickly across the linoleum floor and out the door, leaving behind the faint, expensive scent of her perfume mixed with the fryer grease. She was the silent ally, the single crack in Dave's otherwise impenetrable wall of corporate sycophants. Art waited 30 seconds, then picked up the envelope. Inside, he found a copy of his termination notice, which he already had, but stapled to it was a printout of an internal memo about the lease negotiations for the Gateway Hub, a defunct but strategically vital warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The memo stated the current leaseholder, a shadowy LLC, was refusing to negotiate an extension, causing major routing headaches. Art leaned back, the truth of the situation dawning with chilling clarity. He smiled, a genuine, focused smile this time. He knew that warehouse. He knew that LLC. Because the lease was about to expire, and the owner of the shell corporation that controlled the Gateway Hub was Art Bennett. He had bought the land years ago, knowing its critical value in the regional logistics framework, and held it as a passive investment, a safety net he never planned to deploy. Until now. He pulled out his phone again, dialing Chloe. We need to execute the full plan now, Art said, his voice calm, but with an underlying steel. Dave just gave us the moral justification, and Lena just handed us the logistical Achilles heel. Tell the Shell Corporation to send the formal non-renewal notice immediately. We aren't asking for more money. We are simply taking the land back. Art paused, staring out the window at the cars blurring by on the highway. And Chloe, make sure the notice specifies a 90-day evacuation period. Just enough time for maximum chaos. The simple, retired engineer had just issued the first command in the hostile takeover of Sterling Transport. The legal document, served by courier and delivered directly to Dave Sterling's 7th floor office, was chillingly brief. It wasn't a demand for more money, it was a cessation of service. The notice, delivered by a company called Hubstone Ventures LLC, stated flatly that the lease for the critical Gateway Hub warehouse would not be renewed under any terms and required Sterling Transport to vacate the premises within 90 days. Dave barely glanced at it. He was too busy dealing with the lingering embarrassment of firing a high-rated driver over a petty dispute. He tossed the crisp paper onto his desk blotter, annoyed by the triviality. Another property manager playing hardball, he scoffed to Lena, who stood nearby, radiating quiet tension. They want us to sweat. Fine. Throw them a 10% increase. Make it 20. Tell them to stop wasting my time with boilerplate legal threats. This moment was the twist, the false defeat that looked like a minor irritation to the antagonist, but was in fact the initial stab of the sword. It was the moment the driver, Art Bennett, disguised his devastating counterattack as an insignificant property dispute. The junior analyst tasked with handling the minor land dispute returned 2 hours later, looking pale. He was clearly out of his depth. Mr. Sterling, they refused the offer. 20%, 50%, they said. No negotiations. They are not looking for profit, sir. They just want us gone. I can't even get a name for the person in charge. Everything goes through one small, boutique law firm. Panic, raw, cold, and unfamiliar, began to claw its way into Dave's carefully constructed composure. Losing the Gateway Hub wasn't a logistical headache, it was a logistics fatality. The hub was the only transit point linking the company's vast east and west coast networks without adding days and millions in rerouting costs. Without it, their meticulously engineered, ruthless efficiency evaporated overnight. Dave snatched the papers, scanning the legal language again. Who is Hubstone Ventures? Find out. This is political. This is sabotage. His voice rose, the smooth control cracking. The thought that someone, anyone, could hold this much leverage over his self-made empire was intolerable. His anger quickly turned to paranoia. Who was targeting him, and why? Was it a competitor? Was this personal? His mindset, though still driven by fury, began to shift away from the arrogance of the CEO mocking the driver and toward the strategic paranoia of a general losing the field. He stopped reacting with emotional outbursts and started planning. He wasn't the victim anymore, he was a warrior whose foundation was under attack. Meanwhile, Art Bennett sat in his quiet home office, the scent of fresh wood chips from his latest small carpentry project grounding him. He looked nothing like the CEO's image of old white trash. He was surrounded by technical schematics and financial data, a man operating with laser-like focus. Arrogance always has poor inventory control, Art murmured to Chloe, his daughter, the lawyer. She was on speakerphone, confirming the receipt of the non-renewal notice at Sterling Transport. He didn't value the land, Chloe, because he didn't respect the people who worked on it. Now, the land is fighting back. Art was shown leveraging his old engineer network. He wasn't begging, he was making deals. He secured short-term memorandums of understanding with Sterling's two biggest rivals, promising them access to the Gateway Hub's critical position 90 days after Sterling Transport was forced out. His goal wasn't just revenge, it was the strategic crippling of Dave's company. Chloe, operating quietly through multiple, untraceable investment groups, began buying up large, destabilized blocks of Sterling Transport stock. The news of the hub's potential loss was already spooking institutional investors, and Art was using Dave's own stock decline as the ammunition for the hostile takeover. "Remember, Dad," Chloe's voice came through the speaker. "We keep this strictly business until the moment of the reveal. No emotional contact. He doesn't get to know who is destroying him until he's already lost." Art nodded, running a calloused thumb over a detailed stock chart that looked like a collapsing mountain range. "I know, kid, but I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this because that man needed a life lesson, and a life lesson, properly administered, can be very, very expensive." He was playing the long game, using Dave's arrogance as the fuse and the Gateway Hub as the bomb. Dave Sterling was a man perpetually in motion, but now he was moving frantically, without direction. His downfall was not a sudden explosion, but a slow, agonizing logistical strangulation. Every day, the stock price of Sterling Transport ticked down another percentage point, reflecting the widening gyre of chaos caused by the impending loss of the Gateway Hub. He was shown barking orders into 3 phones simultaneously, his voice hoarse, his custom suits suddenly looking rumpled and ill-fitting. "I don't care about the penalty, I care about the routing," he roared into one phone. "Find a temporary solution. Charter planes, double the truck rotation. I don't care, just stop the bleeding." He was burning through capital and goodwill, sinking deeper into denial that this was anything more than a land grab. Meanwhile, Art Bennett was enjoying the slow, methodical process of justice. He was shown, not in a lavish office, but in the peaceful, sunlit home office he shared with Chloe. The room was dominated by bookshelves and technical journals, not abstract art. Art was finalizing the legal paperwork for the intellectual property infringement lawsuit, preparing the second, crushing wave of the attack. They planned to hit Dave legally while the loss of the hub, the financial collapse, was still ongoing. "He's panicking," Chloe observed, reviewing the market movements on her screen. "He thinks he can buy his way out. He thinks this is just a rival playing rough." "That's the beauty of it," Art replied, his fingers tracing the outline of a faded photograph, his late wife. His voice was quiet, contemplative. "It was never about vengeance, honey. It's about accountability. Dave's company is built on shortcuts and intellectual theft, and that disregard spilled over into how he treats people. I have to clean up the mess I helped create by letting corporate greed win once when I sold my patents." The man needed a life lesson, not a handout. To project confidence and squash rumors, Dave decided to throw a colossal charity gala, forcing attendance from key investors and the press. He stood on a gilded podium, raising a glass of impossibly expensive champagne. "Sterling Transport is too big to fail," he declared, his voice ringing with false bravado. "We crush little inconveniences. We don't just survive, we dominate." He truly believed that a flashy performance could reverse the market trend. At the very moment Dave was toasting his imaginary victory, Lena Chen was making her final, decisive moral choice. She met Chloe Bennett in a sterile, public library meeting room, the atmosphere a stark contrast to the opulence of Sterling Transport. "He's destroying the company," Lena said, her voice heavy with shame. "I can't watch him ruin the careers of thousands of people because of his ego. He thinks you're just a greedy landlord." She pushed a sealed memory stick across the table. "This is the internal financial data. It proves he knowingly bypassed compliance and proprietary licenses to acquire that optimization system. Art's system. It's the smoking gun." Chloe took the stick, her face hard and focused. "Thank you, Lena. You did the right thing." "I did the only thing," Lena corrected, the weight lifting visibly from her shoulders. "I just want the company to be run ethically. And I want Mr. Sterling to understand the value of a 5-minute conversation." With that final piece of evidence, Art and Chloe secured a massive, final loan from a major institutional bank. They used their complete control of the gateway hub, the impending logistics choke point, as leverage to fund the final, complete hostile takeover bid. The money wasn't the hard part, the strategy was. Art was shown calmly drafting the official legal documents, timing the hostile takeover bid to be served at the precise moment of the annual shareholders' meeting. He looked at the finished stack of papers, the accumulated weight of months of silent, meticulous preparation, and thought of the loud, arrogant man in the tailored suit. Dave was celebrating his win, unaware that the quiet driver he had mocked and discarded was not only his landlord but was also about to become his majority shareholder. The trap was sprung, and Dave was walking right into it. The Sterling Transport annual stakeholder meeting was a symphony of tension and expensive tailoring. Held in the company's vast, acoustically perfect main auditorium, the room buzzed not with enthusiasm, but with whispered anxieties. Stockholders gripped their tablets, nervously refreshing financial news feeds, where every other headline seemed to mention the words hub crisis and logistics failure. The air was thick with the scent of high-end cologne and the sharp metallic tang of financial fear. Dave Sterling strode onto the stage, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his desperate eyes. He was wearing a new, silver-gray suit, a visual attempt to project stability, despite the chaos he felt beneath the veneer. He launched into his presentation, filling the room with polished but meaningless corporate jargon, attempting to reassure the room that the recent stock plummet was merely a market correction. "We are a dominant force, ladies and gentlemen. And while we face temporary headwinds regarding one small piece of real estate, I assure you, Sterling Transport is agile, resilient, and ready to soar," he declared, the words hollow against the backdrop of reality. Just as the lights dimmed for a video montage praising Dave's leadership, a movement at the back doors caught Lena Chen's eye. She was seated in the front row, rigid and pale, her tablet clutched tightly. Art Bennett and Chloe, his daughter, slipped silently into the back row. Art, still wearing his simple work attire, a clean but humble collared shirt and slacks, looked profoundly out of place among the suits. Chloe, however, was a corporate shark in a sharp, unforgiving black power suit, her demeanor radiating quiet, formidable control. They were nearly invisible, blending into the last row, observing the theater unfolding on stage. The video ended, and the lights came up. Dave scanned the audience, seeking validation. His eyes locked onto the back row, and he saw the driver. His jaw tightened, his forced smile instantly melting into a sneer of pure contempt. He couldn't resist the urge to mock, to assert his superiority one last time before making his big announcement. Dave paused his speech, raising his microphone and projecting his voice across the hushed room. "I see we have some guests in the back today," he said, dripping with condescension. He gestured casually toward Art. "Even former contractors, hoping for a handout, perhaps hoping to pick up a few free hors d'oeuvres. Sorry, gentlemen, this presentation is for shareholders and serious business partners, not for the hired help." A few sycophantic laughs rippled through the center rows, investors desperate to align with perceived power. Art Bennett calmly met Dave's gaze across the length of the auditorium. He gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod, not of submission, but of confirmation. "Yes, I am here. And yes, you are about to pay." A security guard, catching Dave's eye signal, started to approach Art. But Chloe simply held up a small, discreet badge. Her law firm ID, which featured the name of one of the most powerful corporate litigation firms in the South. The guard faltered, recognizing the power behind the simple card, and retreated nervously. Dave was oblivious to the hesitation, satisfied with the public humiliation. He moved on to his grand finale, but let's talk about solutions. I'm proud to announce we have secured a tentative partnership with Global Link Systems, a major overseas entity. This deal, pending immediate cash infusion from you, our dedicated investors, will allow us to completely bypass the entire hub issue. It's a bold move, yes, but it ensures we not only survive but thrive. I call for a shareholder vote right now to approve the capital expenditure. The moment Dave called for the vote, setting the final trap in motion, Chloe acted. She reached into her briefcase and discreetly handed Lena Chen a small, black memory stick wrapped in a nondescript paper band. Lena, without hesitation, nodded, confirming the transaction. The atmosphere was charged with silent, contained energy, all focused on the stage. As the voting software loaded on the main auditorium screen, Lena quietly approached the projection booth and inserted the memory stick into the secure executive presentation station. Dave, looking triumphant, raised his hands to silence the room. The grand setup was complete. The victim was present, the conspirator was positioned, the evidence was loaded, and the villain was ready to claim his last, false victory. Dave Sterling was beaming, triumphant. The vote will proceed now, he announced, his hand hovering over the input device that would officially seal his temporary escape. He was so focused on the capital expenditure he failed to notice the screen flicker behind him. Then, a clear, authoritative voice cut through the auditorium's stillness from the back row. Point of order, Mr. Sterling. The vote is premature. All heads turned. Chloe Bennett, standing beside her father, was holding a remote microphone, her black suit making her a silhouette of pure command. Dave's face twisted in rage. Security, get that woman out of here. This is a private shareholder meeting. Chloe remained unfazed. I am speaking on behalf of a major shareholder, Mr. Sterling. A shareholder who holds veto power over any new capital expenditure. She paused, letting the murmuring grow. Before you ask for money, you might want to confirm you still own the assets you intend to use as collateral. Dave screamed, I will bury you in litigation. Who the hell are you? That won't be necessary, Chloe stated, her tone flat and devastating. You can't sue your own majority shareholder. The silence that followed was absolute, heavy enough to crush the chandeliers. The screen behind Dave, which Lena had been waiting to control, flashed. The voting data vanished, replaced by a massive, stark graphic. Notice of foreclosure, Gateway Hub. Dave spun around, his jaw dropping in genuine, unscripted shock. He saw the legal document displaying the true ownership of the hub, registered under the name of a company controlled by Chloe Bennett. No, that's a trick. That's just the landlord playing games. We'll fight it. He desperately tried to regain control of the room, sweating through his silver gray suit. This was the climax twist. Chloe smiled, cold and professional. That's only half of it, Mr. Sterling. The other half is that Hubstone Ventures LLC, and 3 other holding companies, all of which have recently been buying your falling stock, are unified under one beneficial owner. The screen flipped again. The dramatic title graphic appeared. New majority shareholder. 51.3% below it. The names of the holding companies vanished, replaced by a single name that hit the audience like a thunderclap. Art Bennett. Dave's head whipped back toward the back row. He searched for the powerful financier, the corporate raider, the executive behind this devastating move. Chloe simply pointed, her finger a precise instrument of justice. Mr. Art Bennett, your former contract driver, is now the majority owner of Sterling Transport. And, by extension, your new CEO. The gasps from the audience were deafening. Art, his eyes steady, began walking down the aisle. He moved slowly, deliberately, the simple fabric of his shirt a stark contrast to the panic in the room. He reached the stage, bypassing the shell-shocked Dave, and gently took the microphone from the podium. His voice, stripped of the timid deference of the day before, was low, resonant, and completely commanding. "I came to check your systems, Mr. Sterling," Art said, looking Dave directly in the eye, his gaze unwavering. "My systems. They were brilliant, based on logic and math. Your conduct, however, was broken, based on arrogance and contempt. The company is fundamentally sound, but the leadership is corrupt." Dave stumbled back, his denial giving way to a frantic scramble. "This is a fraud. You can't do this. You're nothing. You're just a driver." Art delivered the verbal killing blow, leaning into the mic. "You asked for 5 minutes of my time and fair paperwork. You gave me humiliation and public dismissal. You showed me your inventory control, you undervalued the assets you couldn't measure. And you just undervalued your new owner." Before Dave could form another word, Lena Chen stepped forward, holding the memory stick. She addressed the shareholders, her voice calm and authoritative. "Furthermore, as executive assistant, I must confirm that internal documents prove Mr. Sterling knowingly engaged in IP infringement to acquire key software that was, in fact, owned by Mr. Bennett. This is gross misconduct and corporate fraud." The board members, realizing the situation was legally hopeless, instantly voted to remove Dave. 2 uniformed security officers, their faces grim, moved to either side of the now collapsing CEO. Dave Sterling was physically escorted off his own stage, his world dissolving into chaos and noise, watching the quiet, simple driver he had mocked, the man who simply wanted accurate paperwork, assume control of everything he had ever built. 5 years later, the offices on the 7th floor of the tower still overlooked the congested highway, but the atmosphere inside Sterling Transport, now proudly renamed Bennett Logistics, was utterly transformed. The air no longer smelled of sterile aggression, but of collaboration, the quiet whir of efficient machinery and the warm, genuine laughter from the open-plan office spaces. Arthur Bennett, the CEO, sat at a simple, sturdy wooden desk in his office. He had foregone the extravagant corner suite, preferring a space closer to the engineers, where the sound of creative problem-solving replaced the drone of dictatorial phone calls. He was discussing the new benefits package for independent contractors with Lena Chen, who was now the chief operating officer. Her face was relaxed, her tired eyes replaced by the focused light of purpose. "The profit margin is good, Lena," Art said, leaning back. He was still wearing a practical collared shirt and slacks. His hands still looked like they knew how to operate machinery, not just trade stocks. "But the 5-minute paid break for every 4 hours on the road is non-negotiable. We value time, especially theirs. That's the foundation we're building here." Lena smiled. "We're already seeing the lowest turnover rate in the industry, Art. You proved that respect is better collateral than fear." Just then, Art's new, young assistant, a cheerful woman named Sarah, appeared hesitantly at the door. "Mr. Bennett, there's a gentleman waiting in the lobby. He doesn't have an appointment, but he said you might recognize him. He's asking about the new driver training program." Art paused, his hand stilling over the financial report. He knew, after 5 years, the moment had finally arrived. "Send him up, Sarah. And please, just put him on the bench outside my office. Tell him to wait 10 minutes. Art checked his watch, a quiet, almost sad moment of reflection. 10 minutes. The exact time I was forced to wait that day. When the door to Art's office opened, it was Dave Sterling who walked in. The tailored suit was long gone, replaced by a clean, but clearly store-bought shirt and chinos. His hair was neatly trimmed, but the aggressive energy had been bled out of him, leaving a residue of weariness and something unfamiliar: humility. He carried a binder, not a briefcase. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Bennett," Dave said, his voice softer, stripped of its old, cutting edge. He stood a respectful distance from the desk. Art gestured to the guest chair. "Have a seat, Dave. No need to stand on ceremony. You're applying for a job, I presume?" Dave took a slow, deep breath, running a hand over the binder. "Yes, sir. I've been driving a local route for a competitor for the last 2 years. Cash flow logistics, just small packages. It's honest work. But I saw Bennett Logistics advertising for team leaders in the new driver training division, focusing on compliance and safety. I know logistics, Art. Better than almost anyone. You know logistics, Art agreed, a neutral observer, not a judge. But you didn't know people. That was your flaw, wasn't it? You thought because you built the system, you were above the rules of respect. The old rage did not flare in Dave's eyes. Instead, they became glossy with genuine regret. You taught me that lesson, Art. And it was the most expensive education a man could ever receive. I lost everything, not because you were smarter, but because I stopped seeing the humanity in the people who actually did the work. He looked down at his hands, then back up at Art. I treated you like dirt because I saw my younger, desperate self in you, and I hated that I had to climb past that kind of failure. I threw away an empire over a 5-minute wait time. Art nodded, the tension finally easing from the room. The debt of justice was paid. Now only the path to moving forward remained. The old Sterling transport was built on anger. Bennett Logistics is built on respect. We need managers who understand the driver's point of view, managers who know what it's like to wait in the cold, worry about a $50 fine, and be treated like a disposable cog in the machine. Art stood up and offered his hand. This time, Art was the man of power, but his handshake was firm and warm, not crushing. You're overqualified for the team leader role, Dave. But you are perfectly qualified to teach the lesson this company truly needs. You'll start as a senior logistics instructor in the training program. It's $45,000 a year, a full benefits package, and you answer to Lena Chen. Dave's eyes widened, a flicker of the old entitlement almost returning, quickly followed by the shame of reality. 45. It's not CEO money, Dave, Art finished gently. But it's enough to rebuild your dignity, one day at a time. It's a second chance. Don't waste it. Dave accepted the hand, his grip surprisingly steady. He finally saw the man, not the suit or the uniform. He saw the teacher. Thank you, Art. I won't. I've learned that a true leader doesn't stand on the top of a tower and look down. A true leader stands in the dirt with the people who built the foundation. He walked out, heading toward the training program office, no longer rushing, no longer clicking across the marble. He was just a man with a new job, beginning the long journey of earning back his own respect, finally understanding the true cost of arrogance.